All right. Thank you for taking the time to come out. We hope that by attending this event, you're able to learn as much as you'd like about our program by having the opportunity to ask whatever questions you may have. My name is Frederick Jimenez. I joined EMRA in spring 2021, and I am a member of our coordinator team. I am joined today by my fellow coordinators, Bob, Avi, Emmy, Tarika, Carl, Madupe, Mersal, Renan, Elsa, Vi, Shivam, Sarah, and Julia. And we also have general members here, Mumtahina, Jonathan, Ellen, Anna, Eduarda, Dariush, Natasha, and Hassan. Before we get started, I would first like to cover the format of today's info session, as well as some ground rules. So for the first 30 minutes, we're going to be holding a Q&A session where we'll be answering questions submitted to us using the link you see on the screen. Responses will be answered in the order they were submitted. However, we will be receiving questions in real time. So if you have a question that comes during the event or like throughout any point, please don't hesitate to send it in. And actually, can one of the courts post that link in the chat just so it's a little more accessible? And so during this time, the chat feature will be disabled, and we ask that you please mute your audio. We will not answer questions posted in the chat, so please use the link. If we do not get to your question in those 30 to 40 minutes while we're doing this, or you would prefer to ask your question directly to like one of us, a coordinator or general member, you will have the opportunity to do so in the last 20 minutes or so when we all split out into breaking rooms. You're not required to enter this breaking room breakout room. If you're satisfied with all the knowledge you've gained today, you're free to go, and we appreciate you guys for coming. So that concludes my little spiel and like readout for the initial part of this Q&A. Thank you for listening, and without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump into these questions. So the first question that we have is, what is your biggest piece of advice for EMRA reapplicants? And Sarah will go ahead and take this one.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah. I'm one of the program leads. I would say my biggest piece of advice is definitely just know what we do. You would be surprised how many people write their application and even come into the interviews and just don't know what we do. They don't seem passionate about the program. They don't know specifically what committees they want to join or what studies they like. So definitely dive into that kind of stuff. Not just for when you're applying to EMRA, but for any org. I think that's a really good piece of advice that you guys should follow for the application cycle.
Thank you, Sarah. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. So next question is, if I'm a care extender, can I still apply? And we have Shivam on this one.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shivam. I'm a program lead for EMRA. So you can still apply if you are a care extender. My only thing to kind of tell you about this is you must complete your 50 hours first. So there's a 50-hour requirement from the volunteer office at UCLA. Complete your 50 hours in care extenders, and then feel free to apply. If you think you're going to complete these hours by, let's say, week 6, week 7-ish, shoot us an email. We can kind of discuss your options then. But if you're going to complete them by like week 4, let's say you started out in the program last quarter or sometime beginning of the school year, you should probably be good to go. So no worries there. Still apply. Just try to get your hours done by week 4 or 5 this quarter.
Thank you, Shivam. And we have another next like related question that can kind of just reinforce Shivam's response. But the question is, if we just got into UC Health Volunteer Program, into the UC Health Volunteer Program, can we still apply for EMRA, given that we finished 50 hours in the program before we actually begin EMRA? And this one's going to be taken by Julia.
Hi, yeah, I'm going to answer, there were 2 hours related questions, so I'll just answer them really quickly. As Shivam said, the 50 hours need to be completed by the time of onboarding. And the reason that this is because we onboard our cohorts as a cohort. So you and the class of members that you're accepted with are going to be onboarded by the volunteer office as a group. And if you don't have your hours completed by then, that delays the onboarding process. And unfortunately, no matter how promising a candidate is, we are not going to delay an entire cohort's onboarding process because someone hasn't finished their hours at that point. So if you can finish your 50 hours by the time of onboarding, which as Shivam said is around week 4 or 5, then yes, you can still apply. If not, you'll need to wait until you've completed those 50 hours. So our next application cycle would be in the fall.
Awesome, thank you. And Julie, I believe you're on this next question as well, but it's what level of previous or current medicine related experience are you looking for?
Hi, yes. So None, is the short answer. We do not recruit based on any experience. I joined Emra in my freshman year in the fall 2019 cohort. I had no medical experience whatsoever on my resume. I was fresh out of high school. We like to say that we don't recruit on experience, we recruit on character and fit. So you don't need to have anything on your resume related to medicine, any clinical experiences. We rather look for organizational fit. We want you to know what Emra does. We want you to have a clear picture of how you can contribute to the organization. But we do not look for any like practical or hard skills in the clinical setting in applicants. So I encourage you to apply.
Thank you, Julia. And also like this next question is like very related to it, but just like to add a little like, extra details, like how would that question like of needing previous or current experience, how does that apply to like people who are graduated from other schools or are looking for like a gap year opportunity? Does that change the question in any way?
I'm gonna have to say no. We actually have a couple members who didn't graduate from UCLA. They graduated from other institutions and they're in their gap years. We also have members who are currently in their gap years. So you don't have to be an undergrad at UCLA to be an Emra. We don't look for any like clinical experiences in these gap year students, even if they are older. Again, we evaluate based on fit. That what I say is the main criteria for our recruitment. So for gap year students, we just want them to demonstrate that they're passionate, that they are willing to contribute to Emra, that they're going to be reliably able to be on shift. That's the thing as well. If you're not an undergrad at UCLA, you still have to be able to come into the hospital for your shifts regularly. But we're looking for people who are passionate about the program, who know what we do, are passionate about our mission, and can contribute to the community in Emra.
Thank you, Julia. So the next question that we have is, do you need to be a UCLA student currently? I graduated in 2022, and Dariush is going to go ahead and take this one.
Of course, I think Julia already covered most of the answer for this question. No, absolutely, you shouldn't be a UCLA student or UCLA graduate to actually apply for the Emra. For example, I already graduated from the UCLA when I applied for the Emra and got into the program. So you don't need to be a current UCLA undergrad. And we, again, as Julia said, we have members who are who studied in, for example, other UC schools who applied for our program and got in. So you don't need to necessarily be affiliated with the UCLA, but as long as you can actually come to the program and you can satisfy the requirements of the program, you're definitely encouraged to apply for the program.
Thank you, Dariush. And you're on the next question as well, but this question is, what does a weekly basis with Emra look like?
Yeah, of course. So there are some requirements. For example, the 4 hours weekly requirement for the shifts that usually the Emra members go to the Ronald Reagan, and we have multiple various studies that we screen the patients for, and that is the 4 hours requirement for weeks for each week. And there are some general meetings that, again, we have speakers in our general meetings that the Emras should attend, and of course, take advantage of the opportunities that these general meetings offer for the Emra members. And in addition to that, we have many committee-related activities that are related to leadership, related to the inclusion, diversity, related to the community work that Emra offers. And those are not mandatory, but I highly encourage you guys to take advantage of, because it exposes you to a variety of situations, variety of case scenarios that later becomes useful if you're going for any type of graduate school in the future.
Thank you, Dariush. The next question is, What has been your most meaningful experience in the ER? Have any patient experiences or related clinical studies been of particular meaning to you? And then in parentheses, the question mentions as in they stuck out in a perspective changing or emotional way. I think this is a really beautiful question. Mom Tahina, you're on for this one.
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. So thanks for the question, Fred. My most meaningful experience in the ER actually was recently. I was on shift, and for anyone who's unfamiliar, we have a study called ABCT where we basically screen for blunt trauma. But if there is a trauma coming in and we have time and there's not other things that are on the priority list, we can go observe. So we came in with a penetrating trauma. The patient had a GSW, and the patient actually had several of these, and the patient was very young. I went down, I was observing, and the craziest part was all the doctors, the residents, the nurses were like, wow, the patient is so young. The patient is so young, and the patient came in with such a situation. And in my head, I was thinking I was kind of numb to it because the region that I came from before I lived in LA, GSWs are super common, and they're super common in younger communities, in communities of color, which is what we are abundant in. So just things like that completely change your perspective. And the thing I love about EMRA is we talk about these things. We discuss like inequities in healthcare. We talk about socioeconomic disparities. I'm on a workshop right now with Julia, actually, and we're going to be talking about topics like this. I'm also in Journal Club, and we talk about similar situations as well. So that's just something that stuck out to me. And I just love seeing other perspectives and how other people think, because it gives us an idea as the leaders of medicine later on how we can educate others and change these things. So yeah.
Thank you, Mom Tahina. So the next question is another great question is, how have you grown personally and professionally as part of EMRA and performing the clinical studies? Have you grown in unexpected ways? And in parentheses, it mentions, as in, did you not expect to develop in a certain way when first coming into the program? And Julia is going to go ahead and take this one.
Hello again. I realized earlier I didn't introduce myself properly, so I want to do that now just to give proper context on kind of my journey in EMRA and who I am. So my name is Julia Chiami. I joined EMRA in fall 2019 as a freshman. So I was a general member for about 2 years. I became a program lead in my sophomore year. So I stayed in that position for another year and a half, where I was the head of mentorship committee. And then I was the program's primary program lead or head program lead for the 2022 to 2023 year. So I've been with EMRA throughout my entire time at UCLA. And to say that EMRA has been a formative part of my pre-med experience is an understatement. It has literally been my pre-med experience. It has shaped who I am as a pre-med, and as now I'm going off to med school this year. So it has been incredibly formative and has taught me a lot of things. I'll start professionally. During my time as a general member, so as a clinical research associate, I think you learn a lot on your feet. It was my first time working in a hospital. You learn to screen, consent, and enroll patients in the ED's clinical trials. You get a really in-depth knowledge of how to read scientific language, which I think was really valuable for me as a freshman, having never taken those advanced science classes. It's a lot of learning on your feet. And yes, it is a learning curve, but you have a lot of support to thrive in that environment. I found it really rewarding that getting to screen for a diverse number of study protocols at a time, because we're the eyes and ears of the ED. We're not just working on one study at a time as an EMRA, but you work on all of them. So you get to see a lot. You get a lot of experience reviewing patient charts and communicating with providers and patients. So all of these are hard skills that you're going to be able to translate later on into clinical spaces, whether that's as a medical student, as a researcher, et cetera. So that was my time as a general member. And then once I kind of took the step up into the leadership of the program, because there's a lot of opportunities for leadership, whether it's as a program lead or even as a general member, you can lead projects and get more involved in committees. I think there's a lot of room for upward growth if you choose to take those opportunities. Your experience at EMRA, I think, is very much what you make of it. Something that I found extremely rewarding and that I learned a lot from was my time in mentorship committee. I really found it valuable to be able to create meaningful experiences for my colleagues. So directing some of our committee's staple programs, such as mentorship pairings, mock interviews, but also kind of I got to work to spearhead some new initiatives, such as a Women in Medicine seminar. And currently we're working on a intersectional issues in medicine workshop. So these things have really pushed me to research different areas in medicine that I think we all need to be educated on in order to be the best physicians in the future that we can be. I think you learn a lot from being given these opportunities. Thankfully, our ED faculty and our faculty sponsors really are invested a lot in the growth of EMRAS, and they give us plenty of opportunities to grow. It's just up to you to seize those opportunities as a member, and work hard and make the most of them. So in terms of anything that I wasn't expecting to learn, probably that there are plenty of opportunities and plenty of people in EMRA and in the ED who are willing to take a chance on you and give you the resources to succeed. It is up to you to have the initiative to take them and make the most of them. So thank you for listening to my long answer, but clearly I've gotten a lot out of my time in EMRA, and I'm very thankful for the program itself.
Thank you so much, Julia, for that very profound response. Very much appreciated and super insightful. And yeah, so we'll go to the next one. It's, what about EMRA made it unique to you when first applying? As part of EMRA, what makes it special to you? And what does it have that other organizations around UCLA do not have? And Carl will go ahead and take this one.
Hey everyone, my name's Carl and I'm one of the program leads. So to the first part of this question, what made EMRA unique when I was thinking about applying? So I came kind of from a background that was really interested in research already, but I was some translational research, and I was kind of curious about how all that stuff I was working on actually gets applied to patients and how you kind of sublimate it into real world impacts. So to that end, I heard that EMRA was really great kind of real world exposure to the pipeline of clinical research. And just hearing all these things about how high quality the opportunities were got me really interested. And after applying and thankfully becoming part of the program, my initial impressions have been confirmed in spades. I think all the stuff I'm gonna wax grateful about have already been mentioned by other people so far. But it's answering like what makes EMRA special to me right now as an organization and setting it apart from others. It's really the level of involvement and the depth of opportunity that is available within the program. Like, you know, first and foremost, we're a clinical research program, but there's so many other aspects of your experience as an EMRA, which will enrich your undergraduate time. Just some, you know, tangible aspects beyond the immediate clinical research. We have an amazing set of guest speakers that regularly come and talk about very thought-provoking alternative medical paths or experiences during our general meetings. Of course, we have the privilege to shadow within the emergency department, so we get a very real world view of medicine. Also, in our normal clinical workflows, we can attend traumas. And throughout all of this, you just get a sense for what medicine's really like in the day-to-day, because you see people just doing it as their job and as their life. And the work we do is really legit. We have a lot of multi-center studies. And for the ones that EMRAs help out with, oftentimes we're the best site and we enroll the most patients because EMRA's helping with those studies. And the ED staff consistently recognizes this, and they're definitely keen to give back with all the resources that have already been mentioned. And then beyond all that stuff, I think the people are really great. I learn a ton of stuff from the people that we have in the program and their different viewpoints. Everyone's really driven, but at the same time, it's extremely collaborative. You know, you've heard about mentorship committee. Well, that's collaboration embodied. And, you know, rather than being monolithic, I think, as I mentioned, there's a really wide range of interests. So overall, you know, I was interested because clinical research, but I found and I continue to find that there's this immense depth of opportunity. And as Julia mentioned, the more you put into the program, the more you get out. And that's what's kept me so energized and enthusiastic about it.
Thank you, Carl. So our next question is, do we need letters of recommendation or just references? And Julia will go ahead and answer this one.
We do not ask for full letters of recommendation. So the references that you indicate on your on your application will reach out to them via email, but they don't have to write a like formal letter of recommendation that you have to submit as part of your application.
Awesome, thank you. So our next question is, what makes Emory stand out from other pre-med / pre-health clubs here at UCLA? And Ellen will go ahead and answer this one.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I do have a few things to say, some of which are very similar to Carl's wonderful answer. But aside from us being baseline clinical research volunteers in the emergency department, my go-to cheat answer for this would definitely be the people that are part of the org. Everyone is so welcoming and so giving. This is not a toxic pre-med environment in the slightest. We have so many pre-med resources available that members are continuously adding on to every year. We also have a huge alumni network. Regularly have club socials that are an awesome way to get to know everyone. Aside from that, we have a great connection with the emergency department, which is also something that's super unique to EMRA. Not only do we get to shadow in the ED, but we also get to attend emergency resident conferences, which was really, I personally went to one and it was really awesome to see residents respond to simulated real life examples. Like they have these simulation workshops. I got to see how they're trained on how to respond to emergency births, which was awesome. Of course, it was a simulation, but it was still very interesting to see. And then lastly, the many different projects that we have going on in the org are super, super unique to EMRA. For example, Bruins Against Fentanyl OD, the Health Literacy Project, which you can see on Instagram, and they just released a health insurance guide that I believe is the only one to ever exist. So definitely go check that out. But yeah, those are just some of the things.
Thank you, Ellen. Our next question is, when you said to include a reference from a hospital volunteer coordinator if we are a part of a hospital volunteering program, is that included in the 2 to 3 references that we need to provide or separate? And Shivam will go ahead and take care of this one.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a clear answer on this. I don't think we've actually thought about this before, but you can. I'm gonna go ahead and say you can go ahead and make it 2 to 3 of the references you have. Just make sure, this is more of a logistics question. I'm trying to think about the way that our application is laid out at the moment. I think it will ask you to input the information for your clinical research coordinator, or sorry, your kind of your supervisor in this clinical opportunity, if you are in one. That will be a separate area on the application than the actual references. I do want to urge you that if you're a freshman and you're not sure if this person is going to give you the strongest recommendation, go ahead, ask your high school teachers, go ask your high school mentors from your programs and whatnot. That's totally fine. Go ask 2 or 3 of those individuals and they'll speak strongly of you. So yeah, you can include them in the 2 to 3 references if you feel like they're one of the best people to give you a reference. But if you want to include other individuals too, please go ahead.
Awesome, thank you, Shivam. And for the next question is, when will the references need to be submitted by? And this is also your question, Shivam.
Yeah, so the references, you won't need to submit them. The way this will work is when you submit your written application, you will need to write down the names and contact information of the people who are going to be your references. So I do suggest that you reach out to kind of people that you want to be your references this week, early next week, kind of just let them know that you're applying to this program, UCLA, and you're going to put them down as a reference. A good time to let them know that they will be receiving a reference request over a Google form will be 1 to 2 weeks after your primary interview decision. So if you do receive a primary interview, that is the time that I would suggest that you go and email your references and say, look, you might be getting a reference request on behalf of me within the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Thank you, Shivam. The next question is, if I get accepted into EMRA this spring quarter, do I need to stay over the summer? And Julia will go ahead and answer this one.
Yes. So for members who are accepted in this spring 2023 cohort, you will be starting your training. So you'll be training in the ED over summer. Onboarding will take probably the rest of spring quarter. So you would start your shifts, your training shifts during summer. So yes, you would need to be present in Westwood during summer.
Thank you, Julia. The next question is, how often will we be able to shadow an ER doctor? How flexible are the volunteering and shadowing hours? And this one's for Marcel.
Yes. So on top of the 4-hour clinical shifts that MRs get to do every week where we screen and enroll for patients, we also get the opportunity to shadow in the ED. And shadowing opportunities for members are, you're able to sign up twice a week or twice in 1 month, sorry. And each of these shifts can go anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. And the shadowing shifts are really cool because you get to see a lot of different cases that don't necessarily directly relate to one of our studies. So yeah, it's a really good opportunity for clinical hours and shadowing as well.
Thank you, Marcel. We'll go ahead to the next question which is, when you join EMRA, are you joining a specific committee? What does a typical day of EMRA student researcher look like? What do you do outside of the hospital? And this one's for Elsa.
Yes, so when you join EMRA, you're not joining any specific committee. Just as Marcel mentioned, you have your 4-hour once a week clinical shift, but as others have been saying, you can put really as much or as little as you want into EMRA outside of that. But as Julia mentioned, the more you put in, the more you get out of it. We have a lot of amazing committees that people have already talked about, and you can really get a lot of more knowledge and research and mentorship and all of that through those committees. But you are welcome to join as many or as little committees as you want. I would say a typical day can definitely vary. You may have your 4-hour shift once a week. You can be involved in shadowing, like Marcel just said, or working on other projects involved with EMRA.
Thank you, Elsa. Our next question is, what is the time commitment? Specifically like time of day, total hours, that kind of thing. So this will be taken by Tarika.
Hi, my name is Tarika and I'm one of the program leads. So Elsa kind of touched on this in the last question, but the typical EMRA shift is about 4 hours per week, and shifts run from 8 a.m. to midnight every day for the entire year. In the past, EMRAs have also participated in 2-hour clerical shifts. Many EMRAs are also involved in committees and separate projects, and the timing is a little bit more variable here. But kind of going back to what everyone's been touching on, you have the opportunity to define your EMRA experience, and the more you put into the program, the more you take away, the more you grow, the more you learn, and the more you get to interact with amazing, amazing people who will inspire you and teach you so much.
Thank you, Tarika. The next question is, how long could someone potentially continue to work as a volunteer as a part of this organization? And are there possible other opportunities that could be expected as a result of working with y'all? This will be taken by Sarah.
All right. Hello, everyone, once again. So short answer is yes. We have members currently in their gap years, and we even had a person who applied from a completely separate school last cycle. So really, you don't even really need to be affiliated with UCLA to be part of EMRA, which is pretty awesome. It's one of the few pre-med orgs that allows you to do that here. So yes, and then the second part of that question, what other opportunities you get? I love this question because it gives me a chance to kind of plug my favorite thing about EMRA, which is mentorship. Mentorship is awesome. It is my favorite committee. And it gives you truly so many connections to not only like your fellow EMRAs, the alumni who were EMRAs before you, but also residents in the ED. I made my whole like MCAT scheduling study guide based on like what Julia did. So it's really just like a matter of passing down advice to each other. And a lot of our EMRAs, even now, like they're getting jobs that are passed down from older EMRAs who took those jobs in their gap years. So really you get this whole network of people, which is one of my favorite things about the program. So yes, you get an amazing amount of opportunities when you join EMRA.
Thank you, Sarah. And I just want to add on to that by saying that Julia is the GOAT, because I literally like I made my MCAT schedule like the way that she did it too. So she's helped out a lot of people. She's the GOAT for real. But yeah, sorry for that little side note. The next question is, what is the time commitment like? Are breaks mandatory? And I'm assuming like this question is asking about like breaks during shifts. And Sarah, this is also your question.
Yeah, so the time commitment, we kind of went over this earlier, but breaks in terms of like Christmas breaks, spring breaks, summer break, that is mandatory. Our studies, they run 24/7, 365 days a year. So there's really no pause for those studies. We're continuously screening for them, and it's really important that we do that. So there are no breaks. But we are pretty flexible in that, like for finals week and for breaks like that, we modify the schedule so that it fits what your schedule is like best. So definitely a lot of flexibility there, but yes, you do have to be here during breaks for your shift.
Thank you, Sarah. The next question is, what are you looking for in EMRA applicants? And this one's for Shivam.
Yeah, so I think the main thing that we look for in EMRA applicants is kind of a sense of passion, a sense of maturity, showing that you're able to grow through the experiences you've had in your past. These experiences don't necessarily need to be academic. They can be experiences you've had in your life. What I always tell people is whatever you're comfortable sharing and whatever's helped you grow, talk about that. So show us that you're passionate about things, show us that you are someone that's going to grow. We take recruitment really seriously at EMRA because we know it's a tremendous responsibility. There's a lot of opportunities within the program. We approach recruitment with kind of that mindset to choose very carefully. So we really want to see that you're someone that invests into the opportunities that kind of have presented themselves to you. And these don't necessarily, again, need to be academic or extracurricular opportunities. These could have been times where you've stepped up for kind of interpersonal issues or things that you're within your family. And again, if you're comfortable sharing these things and you think that you've learned a lot from these experiences, please share them. So I'd say that maturity, ability to grow, and passion are probably the three most important things that we look for.
Thank you, Shivam. So sorry, I lost track here. Sorry, 1 second, guys. My Excel sheet just like lost my place for some reason.
I can go ahead and read it. I see it if you would like me to.
Okay.
Cool. I'm also next, so I got it, Fred.
Okay, yeah, good. Thank you, Shivam.
Yeah. So the next question is, how does EMRA seek to foster inclusion for someone who may be a career changer and relatively newer to the development of a career in medicine? We love people like this, right? So if you're not someone that's pre-health or you're just changing into pre-health, we still want you to apply. You still have a place in EMRA. The way that we really foster inclusion for individuals like this is the amount of exposure we're going to give you. So we're going to give you broad sweeping exposure kind of to different specialties in medicine through our guest speakers. You're going to get access to how a hospital really works through just the ability of being in the emergency department. And then we're going to lay a foundation for clinical research and how to understand kind of science talk or, whatever like medical kind of wording or jargon you might be unfamiliar with. So that's going to be done through our new member training committee and through all the experiences you have to kind of talk to your trainer, talk to the coordinators and the other members, the program leads and the other members within the program. Those are really the most, I think, fruitful opportunities and learning what you need to do kind of in pre-health careers, and then also in learning jargon or kind of the points of confusion that you may have.
Awesome. Thank you, Shivam. I was able to find the place now. So our next question is, what type of patient and physician interactions do EMRA Research Associates get to experience? And this one will be handled by Dariush.
Of course. As Shivam mentioned, we have so many programs within the EMRA that can actually match you up even with resident mentors or with physician mentors who can help you if you're applying for the medical school, if you are planning to just generally talk to them, take some advices regarding your pre-med journey or regarding the graduate schools that you're applying to. That is a very useful, priceless interaction that you can, of course, experience by emailing or even go and meet these residents or doctors. And within the shifts, of course, we also offer shadowing experiences that you guys can go to the ED of the Ronald Reagan Hospital and you can see very interesting moments that happens between the residents attendings when they're actually making go through the process of decision making and diagnosing the patient. And you will see all this sort of interaction, teaching moments that happens between the medical students and the attendings, and also the interactions between the physicians and other medical staff that you guys see. And again, when you go down there, you can, of course, interact with the medical students, with the residents when they're free, and you can use their experiences and use their experiences towards your education and pre-med journey.
Thank you, Dariush. The next question is, could you clarify the process for joining specific research projects and or committees? For example, how would you join the YPIC SP study or the mentorship committee? This one will be taken by Elsa.
Yeah, so I already talked about the committees before, how you can join as many as you want to. And all you have to do to join a committee is just show interest, and you can join the group messaging channel for that. But for projects, so when you join as an EMRA, you're involved during your clinical shifts and all the projects that EMRA is involved in. So as EMRA takes on new projects or completes certain projects, you will be working on all those projects at once on shift, which is really cool because at any time you could be working on screening for and enrolling like 5 patients for 5 different projects while on shift. So it is very interesting and keeps things very exciting, switching between looking at all those different studies.
Thank you, Elsa. And so since we only have about like 20 minutes or so remaining, we're going to go ahead and conclude the live Q&A session part where we're going through like each question. We're going to go ahead and just jump straight into the breakout room. So if you still have questions, feel free to ask them then. Otherwise, if you're satisfied with the knowledge you've gained, you don't have any further questions, you guys are free to go. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and organize those breakout rooms.